My parents always favored my sister, even when she lied and let me take the fall. But when the truth exploded, no one was ready for what came next. I'm the oldest in my family. Growing up, I was always the one who kept things together when times got tough. I guess that's just how it goes when you're the firstborn. You kind of end up being the responsible one, whether you like it or not. My younger sister, Mallory, on the other hand, has always been a bit, well, let's just say different. She's one of those people who seems to think life should just work out without much effort on her part. Anyway, last year, Mallory came to me crying about how she couldn't live at home anymore. Our parents, Deborah and Martin, can be a lot, I'll admit. They're the classic overbearing type, always pushing their opinions and never letting you forget that they know better. Mallory spun this whole story about how they were ruining her life, how she felt like she was suffocating under their rules, and how she just needed to get out. She said all the right things. I just need some space to figure out my life. I'll start applying for jobs as soon as I'm settled, and I swear I'll handle it after the first few months. She laid it on thick. I mean, she was crying and everything. So of course, I felt bad for her. I figured, all right, maybe this is the push she needs to get her life together. So I went all in to help her. I found her a little apartment, not fancy but decent enough, and covered the first month's rent and the deposit. On top of that, I helped her furnish the place. Nothing extravagant, just some basic stuff so she wouldn't be sitting in an empty room. I made it really clear, though, that this wasn't a long-term thing. I told her, Mallory, I'll help you for a few months, but after that, you're on your own. You've got to step up. At first, she seemed super grateful. She kept saying things like, you're the best brother ever, and I can't believe you're doing this for me. I'm not going to lie. It felt good to help her, like maybe I was doing something that would actually make a difference in her life. But that feeling didn't last long. For the first couple of months, I kept checking in on her to see how things were going. Every time I asked about her job search, though, she'd have some excuse. Oh, the market is really bad right now, or I've been feeling so stressed I just need a bit more time. Meanwhile, she wasn't even trying. She'd just hang out at home or go out with friends, acting like she had all the time in the world. I kept paying her rent because she always had a reason why she couldn't do it yet. At first I figured, okay, maybe she just needs a little more time to get on her feet. But by the third month, I was starting to feel like I was being taken advantage of. Then, in the fourth month, I got hit with a pretty big expense. My car broke down, and the repair bill was no joke. It wiped out a good chunk of my savings, and I told Mallory straight up, I can't cover your rent this month. You're going to have to figure it out. You'd think I told her the world was ending. She went from grateful little sister to full-on drama queen in about 5 seconds. She threw a tantrum, accused me of abandoning her, and said I was being selfish. Selfish, after everything I'd done for her. I tried to explain that I wasn't abandoning her, that I just couldn't afford it that month, but she wasn't hearing it. She stormed off, slamming the door, and I didn't hear from her for days. I thought maybe this would be the wake-up call she needed, like, okay, now she's going to realize she has to step up and take some responsibility. But no, of course not. Mallory ghosted me for almost 2 weeks after that. I figured she was either mad at me or finally getting her act together. I tried to give her some space because honestly, I didn't want to deal with her drama. But then my mom called, and everything started to make sense, or not, depending on how you look at it. My mom didn't call to check on me or ask how I was doing. No, she called to yell at me. Why are you being so cruel to Mallory? She said. I was completely caught off guard. Like, what? Cruel? What was she talking about? Apparently, Mallory had gone to my parents and spun some wild story about how I forced her to move out and then left her to sink. She told them I had promised to take care of everything and then just bailed on her without warning. She even said I'd been mean to her and didn't care about her struggles. My mom was livid. She's your sister, and she's struggling, she said. How can you just abandon her like that? My dad called me later that night, basically repeating the same stuff. They both acted like I was the villain, like I'd done something horrible to Mallory. That's when it hit me. Mallory wasn't just being irresponsible. She was straight up lying to our parents to make herself look like the victim. And the worst part? They believed her. I tried explaining my side of the story. I told them how she'd begged me for help, how I'd been paying her rent for months, and how I couldn't keep doing it because of my own financial situation. But they weren't having it. She's barely scraping by, my mom said. She's overwhelmed and just needs more time. How could you just leave her like that? It didn't matter what I said. They had already made up their minds. To them, Mallory was the struggling little sister, and I was the heartless older brother who abandoned her. Meanwhile, I found out through a mutual friend that Mallory was still hanging out with her friends, going out, and doing pretty much everything except looking for a job. She wasn't overwhelmed, she just didn't care. When I confronted her about it, she didn't even try to deny it. She just shrugged and said, well, maybe if you hadn't stopped helping me, I wouldn't have had to go to them. She had this smug look on her face, like she was proud of herself for getting our parents on her side. That's when I realized this wasn't going to end anytime soon. Mallory wasn't just irresponsible, she was manipulative, and now she had my parents wrapped around her finger. Honestly, I didn't know what to do about it. I mean, how do you argue with people who've already made up their minds? It didn't matter what I said, what I showed them, or how much effort I'd already put in. To them, Mallory was the innocent victim, and I was the bad guy who left her to fend for herself. It wasn't just frustrating, it was exhausting. I kept replaying the phone calls with my mom and dad in my head, wondering if I'd missed something or said something wrong. But no, it was all Mallory. She was the one who decided to twist the story. She was the one who turned my parents against me. And the worst part? She didn't seem to feel even a little bad about it. I didn't reach out to her after that. I couldn't. What was the point? She was perfectly fine pretending she was some struggling victim while I was left to deal with the fallout. Meanwhile, she kept living her carefree life, knowing full well that my parents were defending her every move. The thing is, I wasn't even mad at first. I think I was just hurt. Like, how could my own sister do that to me? I'd been helping her, going out of my way to make sure she was okay, and she repaid me by lying to our parents and making me look like the villain. It was such a slap in the face. Then, about a week later, my mom called again. This time, she wasn't just upset, she was furious. Mallory says she's going to be evicted, she said. How could you let this happen? I almost laughed. I didn't let anything happen, Mom, I said. She's an adult. If she can't pay her rent, that's on her. She told me you promised to help her until she got a job, Mom snapped. So you just abandoned her when she needed you the most. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Oh, Mom, I said, trying to stay calm. I helped her for months. I paid her rent, I bought her furniture, I gave her everything she needed to get started. She hasn't even tried to get a job. She's been partying and hanging out with her friends instead of taking responsibility. But my mom wasn't having it. See, she's stressed, she said. So you don't understand how hard it is for her right now. That was the moment I realized there was no reasoning with her. No matter what I said, no matter how much proof I had, she wasn't going to believe me. Mallory had gotten to her first, and that was all that mattered. It didn't stop there, though. A few days later, my dad called. Your mother's really upset, he said. You need to fix this. Fix what? I asked. I've already done more than enough for Mallory. She needs to take responsibility for herself. You're her brother, he said, like that was supposed to explain everything. If she needs more time, why can't you just help her out a little longer? Because I'm not her bank account, I snapped. She's 25 years old, Dad. She's not a kid anymore. She needs to grow up. He didn't say much after that, just muttered something about how disappointed he was. By the time the call ended, I was so frustrated I could barely think straight. At that point, I started avoiding their calls. I didn't want to deal with it anymore. Every conversation just turned into the same argument, and I was tired of defending myself. I figured if they wanted to believe Mallory's lies, that was on them. I wasn't going to keep fighting a losing battle. But then a mutual friend reached out to me with something that completely changed the game. Hey, I thought you should know, they said. Mallory's been telling people that you've been supporting her this whole time. I was confused. What do you mean? I asked. And she's been bragging about how you're still paying her rent, they said. She's even joked about how she doesn't need a job because her brother has it covered. I was furious. Not only had she lied to my parents, but now she was lying to everyone else too, and she was doing it so casually, like it was no big deal. That's when I decided I needed to confront her. I called her up and said, Mallory, we need to talk. She didn't sound nervous or guilty. If anything, she sounded annoyed. What now? She said. I know what you've been saying, I told her. I know you've been lying to Mom and Dad, and I know you've been bragging to your friends about how I'm still paying your bills. What the hell is wrong with you? She didn't even try to deny it. So what? She said. If you just kept helping me, none of this would have happened. I had to survive somehow. Survive? I said, completely stunned. You've been partying and hanging out with your friends while I've been breaking my back trying to help you, and now you're lying to everyone about it? Are you kidding me? She just laughed. You're so dramatic, she said. It's not that serious. That was the moment I realized Mallory wasn't just irresponsible. She was narcissistic. She didn't care about anyone but herself. She didn't care that she was ruining my reputation, or that she was putting me in an impossible position with our parents. All she cared about was making sure she didn't have to deal with the consequences of her own actions. I hung up the phone and decided I was done helping her, done trying to explain myself to my parents, done being the one who always had to clean up her messes. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going to let Mallory drag me down with her anymore. But of course, my family wasn't about to let it go that easily. I kept ignoring calls from my mom and dad for a while, thinking they'd eventually drop it. They didn't. Every few days, I'd get another voicemail from my mom, her voice trembling with disappointment. "Why are you letting this tear our family apart?" she'd say. Or worse, "and raised you better than this." My dad wasn't as dramatic, but he had his own way of making me feel like I was the problem. His texts were short but cutting. Things like, "I need to talk," or "I don't know what's happened to you lately." They didn't want to hear my side. They just wanted me to fix things, and by fix, they meant give Mallory whatever she wanted. Then came the invitation, or more accurately, the demand, for a family meeting. My mom called me one night, and I finally picked up because I figured ignoring them forever wasn't going to work. "We need to sit down and talk about this as a family," she said. I wanted to say no. Every part of me was screaming that this was a bad idea, that it was just going to turn into another blame game where I'd somehow end up as the bad guy. But there was this tiny part of me that thought maybe, just maybe, this would be an opportunity to address the truth. I thought if I laid everything out in front of them, they'd finally understand. So, I agreed. The day of the meeting, I showed up to my parents' house armed with everything I could think of to prove my side of the story. I had screenshots of rent payments, texts from Mallory thanking me for helping her, and even a few messages from mutual friends confirming she hadn't been looking for a job. If they were going to accuse me of abandoning her, I was going to make sure they saw exactly what I'd done to help her first. When I walked into the living room, the atmosphere was tense. My parents were sitting on the couch, arms crossed, looking like they'd already made up their minds about who the villain was. And then there was Mallory, sitting between them with that same smug look she always had when she thought she'd won. She didn't even say hello. "All right," I said, sitting down across from them. "Let's talk." My mom jumped in immediately. "We just want to understand why you've been so cruel to your sister," she said. Cruel. That word made my blood boil, but I kept my cool and tried to explain. "Mom, I've been helping Mallory for months. I paid her rent, I bought her furniture, I did everything I could to help her get on her feet. What more do you want from me?" "And you abandoned her," my dad said. "She wasn't ready, and you just left her to fail." "And didn't abandon her," I shot back. "She's an adult. At some point, she has to take responsibility for her own life. I gave her a head start, and she blew it." Mallory rolled her eyes. "Oh, here we go," she said. "The big speech about how you're the victim." I ignored her and pulled out my phone. "You want proof?" I said. "Here, look at these rent payments. Look at these texts where she begged me for help and promised she'd start looking for a job. Here's also the messages from her friends saying she hasn't even been trying." I handed my phone to my mom, but she barely glanced at it before passing it back. "This isn't about proof," she said. "This is about family. You're supposed to be there for each other." "I was there for her," I said, my voice rising despite myself. "I was there for her when no one else was, and how did she repay me? By lying to you and making me look like the bad guy." Mallory gasped. Like she was shocked I dared call her out. "I didn't lie," she said. "I told them the truth. You pressured me to move out, and then left me to deal with everything on my own." "That's not what happened, and you know it," I said, turning to her. "You begged me to help you. You said you couldn't stand living at home anymore, so I gave you everything you needed to start fresh. And instead of stepping up, you sat around doing nothing and blamed me when things didn't work out." Mallory didn't even try to deny it. Instead, she went straight for the pity card. "You don't understand how hard it's been for me," she said, her voice trembling. "And I've been so stressed and overwhelmed, doing the best I can. That's when I lost it." "Your best?" I said, laughing bitterly. "It's your best is hanging out with your friends and bragging about how your idiot brother is paying your bills? That's your best?" Mallory's face turned red, but before she could say anything, my mom stood up. "Enough," she said. "We're not going to sit here and let you attack your sister like this." "Attack her?" I said, standing up too. "I'm not attacking her. I'm telling the truth. But I guess that doesn't matter, does it? You've already decided I'm the bad guy." My dad shook his head. "You've changed," he said. "You're not the son we raised." That hit me harder than I wanted to admit, but I wasn't going to let them guilt me into giving in. "No," I said. "I'm the same person I've always been. The difference is, I'm finally done letting Mallory walk all over me." With that, I turned and walked out. I didn't slam the door, even though I wanted to. I just left. As I drove home, I kept replaying the meeting in my head, wondering if there was anything I could have said or done differently. But the truth was, it wouldn't have mattered. They didn't want to hear the truth. They just wanted someone to blame, and I was the easiest target. By the time I got home, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to keep trying to explain myself to people who didn't want to listen. If they wanted to believe Mallory's lies, that was their choice. But I wasn't going to let them drag me down anymore. I wasn't about to keep fighting a battle where the other side didn't care about the truth. I knew there was no point trying to convince my parents, especially after that family meeting. They were fully on Team Mallory no matter what proof I had, so I just stopped engaging. I figured if I ignored the drama long enough, they'd eventually realize the truth on their own. For a few weeks, things were quiet. Too quiet. My parents stopped calling as much, which felt like a small victory, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was brewing behind the scenes. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call from Mallory's old landlord. "Hi, is this Mallory's emergency contact?" he asked, his voice already sounding irritated. I hesitated for a second. Yeah, I guess. What's going on?" "She's abandoned the apartment," he said flatly. "She left it a complete mess. Holes in the walls, garbage everywhere, and some of the furniture is missing. I've been trying to get a hold of her, but she's not answering. Do you know where she is?" I took a deep breath. "Nope," I said. "And honestly, that's not my problem anymore." "Well, she owes money for damages and unpaid rent," he said, his voice rising. "If you hear from her, let her know we'll be pursuing this legally if she doesn't pay up." I hung up without responding. I wasn't about to be her go-between, but I'll admit I was pissed. That furniture he mentioned? A lot of it was stuff I bought for her when she first moved in, and now it was either destroyed or missing. Typical Mallory, burning every bridge she could while leaving someone else to clean up her mess. I thought about calling my parents to tell them, but I stopped myself. What was the point? They'd just find some excuse for her behavior, like they always did. Then, a few days later, my cousin Kara called me. Kara and I had always been close, and if anyone in the family could see through Mallory's nonsense, it was her. "Hey, I know you're not really talking to anyone right now, but you need to see this," she said. She sent me a screenshot from Mallory's private Instagram, the one she didn't let most of the family follow. In the photo, Mallory was sitting in what looked like a high-end cafe, wearing an expensive-looking outfit and holding a latte with some kind of fancy design in the foam. The caption read, "Treating myself because I deserve it." I stared at the photo for a solid minute, trying to wrap my head around it. This was the same person who had been crying to my parents about being broke and overwhelmed, the same person who trashed her apartment and skipped out on rent. And now she was out there treating herself? I forwarded the screenshot to my parents with a simple message. "This is the person you're defending." My mom called me almost immediately. "It's not what it looks like," she said, her voice shaky. "What isn't what it looks like?" I asked. "She's clearly not struggling. She's out there spending money and living it up while you're bending over backward to make excuses for her." "Oh, well, maybe someone else paid for it," she said quickly. "You don't know the whole story." "I don't care who paid for it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "And the point is, she's not overwhelmed or broke like she keeps claiming. She's just using people, and you're letting her." There was a long pause before my mom spoke again. "Oh, you're being too harsh," she said quietly. "Since she's under so much stress, you don't understand what she's going through." I hung up before I could say something I'd regret. A week later, things got even stranger. Trent, one of Mallory's ex-boyfriends, reached out to me out of the blue. We hadn't spoken in years, but he'd apparently heard about the drama through mutual friends. "Hey man, I don't want to get involved in your family stuff, but I thought you should know something," he said. I sighed. "What is it?" "Mallory did the same thing to me when we were dating," he said. "She moved in with me, said she needed help getting on her feet, and then basically used me to pay for everything. Rent, groceries, bills, you name it. Meanwhile, she was hiding money from side gigs in a separate bank account. I wasn't shocked. If anything, it just confirmed what I already knew." "So she's done this before," I said. "Yeah," he said. "And from what I've heard, she's doing pretty well for herself right now. Better than she lets on, anyway." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Well, someone told me she's been spending a lot lately, like way more than someone who's supposedly broke should be spending," he said. "Trips, shopping, stuff like that. I just figured you should know because she's really good at making people believe her lies." I thanked him for the heads up, but after we hung up, I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said. If Mallory had money stashed away somewhere, it would explain a lot, like how she seemed to always bounce back despite constantly burning bridges. But where was it coming from? A few days later, Kara called me again, this time sounding almost excited. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "What now?" I asked, already bracing myself. "She's been posting on her private Instagram again," Kara said. "But this time, it's not just one picture, it's like a whole string of them." She sent me the screenshots, and my jaw practically hit the floor. There was Mallory at what looked like a luxury spa, lounging in a robe next to a pool. In another picture, she was shopping in what I recognized as an upscale boutique downtown. The captions were all variations of the same theme, treat yourself and living my best life. I couldn't believe it. Where was she getting the money for this? I decided to dig a little deeper on my own. I started with her social media, going through every post, tag, and comment I could find. Most of it was private, but there were little clues here and there. Mentions of expensive places, photos of pricey meals, and comments from her friends joking about her meant glow up. The more I looked, the more I started to realize that Mallory wasn't just getting by, she was thriving, or at least pretending to. But how? That's what I couldn't figure out. I even considered reaching out to some of her friends, but I wasn't sure how much they knew or if they'd even tell me the truth. I didn't want to tip her off either. If she knew I was digging into her life, she'd probably just double down on her lies or spin some new story to make me look bad. The whole thing felt like a puzzle, and I wasn't sure if I was ever going to get all the pieces. But one thing was clear. Mallory wasn't struggling. She wasn't overwhelmed or under pressure like she'd been telling everyone. She was hiding something, and I was going to find out what it was. At this point, I wasn't just frustrated. I was determined. Mallory had spun so many lies that it was hard to tell what was real anymore. But the photos, the trips, the expensive clothes, it all pointed to one thing. She wasn't as broke or stressed as she wanted everyone to believe. She was hiding something, and I wanted answers. The more I dug, the more inconsistencies I found. For example, there were comments on some of her older Instagram posts from a few months back, things like, "Can't wait to see you in LA," and "Living the dream, girl." LA? Mallory had never mentioned anything about traveling to our parents, and she definitely hadn't said anything to me. Another weird thing was how polished her lifestyle seemed, even when she was supposedly broke. Her photos looked curated, like she was trying to project an image of success. Everything was perfect. The backgrounds, the outfits, even her captions. It felt fake, like a show she was putting on for her audience. Then there were her friends. I didn't recognize most of the people commenting on her posts. They weren't the crowd she used to hang out with, the ones who were always tagging her in party photos and inside jokes. These new people were different. They seemed more polished, more upscale. It made me wonder if Mallory had completely shifted her circle to fit whatever image she was trying to sell. A few days later, Kara called me again. "I think I might have something for you," she said, her voice low, like she didn't want anyone to overhear. "What is it?" I asked. "Remember that post from the boutique?" she said. "The one where she was showing off all those shopping bags?" "Yeah, well, one of my friends works there." I asked her about it, and guess what? Mallory didn't even pay for most of that stuff. Apparently, she's been showing up with people who foot the bill for her. I frowned. "Like who?" "I don't know," Kara said. My friend didn't want to say too much, but she did mention that Mallory has been hanging out with some guy who spends a lot of money on her. She didn't get his name, but she said he's definitely not from around here. That explained some of the shopping, but it didn't explain everything. I thanked Kara for the info and kept digging. Later that week I got another clue, this time from an unexpected source, Mallory's old roommate, Claire. I hadn't spoken to Claire in years, but she messaged me suddenly. "Hey," she wrote, "I don't know if this is my place, but I thought you should know that Mallory's been acting shady." Shady? That seemed like an understatement at this point. "What do you mean?" I asked. Claire's reply was long, but it painted a pretty clear picture. Apparently, Mallory had borrowed money from Claire months ago, claiming she needed it for rent. She promised she'd pay me back, but then she ghosted me, Claire wrote. And now I'm seeing her posting all this stuff on Instagram, and it doesn't add up. She owes me over $800, but she's out here living like a queen. I apologized to Claire on Mallory's behalf, not that it was my responsibility, and told her I'd try to get to the bottom of it. By now I had a good idea of what was going on. Mallory had built her entire life on lies and manipulation. She'd cut ties with anyone who called her out, surrounded herself with people who didn't know the real her, and managed to keep up the facade by relying on others to bankroll her lifestyle. But I still wanted concrete proof. If I was going to confront her or anyone else in the family, I needed to be 100% sure. So I decided to go back through her social media, this time focusing on any tags or mentions from her new friends. It didn't take long to find something interesting. One of the people who tagged her, a woman named Sophia, had a public profile. Sophia's post showed her in the same places as Mallory had been. Boutiques, spas, and even a rooftop party that looked like something out of a movie. The captions were vague but hinted at some kind of business relationship. Things like another successful meeting or celebrating our achievements. But there was one post that stood out, a photo of Mallory and Sophia sitting on a couch surrounded by shopping bags. The caption read, "Grateful for my team and all the hard work we've put in." Team? What team? The more I looked into Sophia, the more suspicious I got. She didn't seem to have a regular job, at least not one she talked about online, but she posted a lot about hustling and making moves. It all felt vague, like she was trying to sell an image rather than a product. And Mallory was right there in the middle of it. At this point, I couldn't tell if Mallory was scamming people, getting scammed herself, or just riding along for the free perks. But it was clear she wasn't the broke, struggling person she'd been pretending to be. Instead of going to my parents with what I'd found, I decided to sit on it for a bit. I wanted more answers before I brought them into it. If I rushed into this, Mallory would just spin another story to make me look like the bad guy, and I wasn't about to give her that chance. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call from Mallory herself. "Hey," she said, her voice unusually cheerful. "How's it going?" I wasn't sure how to respond. We hadn't spoken since the family meeting, and now she was acting like nothing had happened. Fine," I said. "What do you want?" She laughed, like I'd made some kind of joke. "I just wanted to catch up. I feel like we haven't talked in forever." I narrowed my eyes. "Why now?" I asked. "No reason," she said quickly. "I just missed talking to you." I didn't trust her for a second. "What do you really want, Mallory?" There was a pause, and then she sighed. "Look, I know things have been tense between us, but I think we should put all that behind us. We're family, you know." I ended the call as soon as I could. Whatever Mallory was up to, it wasn't going to be good, and I had a feeling I was about to find out exactly what it was. Mallory's sudden, cheerful call had stuck with me, but it didn't take long for the truth to surface. Days after her call, the pieces started coming together. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was in trouble, and as usual, she was reaching out to me only when she'd run out of options. Then the bomb dropped. Late one evening my mom called. Her voice was shaky and I could tell something was seriously wrong. "She's in jail," she said. For a moment I thought I'd misheard her. "What? Who's in jail?" "Mallory," she whispered. "She's been arrested." "What did she do this time?" I asked, though I already knew it wasn't something minor. "She stole money," my mom said, her words trembling. "Thousands of dollars from her friends. They pressed charges." I let the silence hang between us as I tried to process what she was saying. "How?" "She used their accounts," my mom explained. "She somehow convinced them to let her manage some payments and then transferred the money to herself. One of them caught on and went to the police. It all clicked. The loans she begged people for, the vague posts about making moves, and the shopping sprees she clearly couldn't afford. She hadn't just lied her way through life, she'd stolen her way to this point. "She needs us," my mom said, breaking the silence. "She wants us to bail her out." I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. Of course she did. Mallory never faced consequences if she could help it. "And you're going to do it, aren't you?" I asked, my tone sharp. "She's our daughter," my mom said softly. "We can't just leave her there." "Yes, you can," I said firmly. "She got herself into this mess. Let her deal with it." "But she's family," my mom pleaded, her voice breaking. "She's also a liar and a thief," I said. "If you bail her out, she'll keep doing this. Maybe not to you, but to someone else. She needs to face the consequences this time." The line was quiet for a moment, and I could hear her sniffling on the other end. "You really think we should leave her there?" "Yes," I said. "It's time she learns that actions have consequences." I don't know if they bailed her out or not. I didn't follow up, and I stopped answering their calls after that. I was done with Mallory and the chaos she brought into everyone's lives. She'd spent her whole life running from responsibility, manipulating people, and taking what wasn't hers. Now she was finally facing the music, and as far as I was concerned, this was long overdue. For me, it was freeing. I wasn't angry anymore, just relieved to be out of the mess. Mallory had built her life on lies, and now it had finally caught up with her. Karma doesn't forget, and honestly, it was about time.